Hmm. Well, it might not wash my hair, but it definitely washes the soul a bit. So I want to start just by offering some gratitude to my dear friend Kirsten at Jade Frog Tea. He's just had his soft launch, by the way. If you want to drink amazing teas, check out Jade Frog Tea. Kirsten's actually offering some of his personal stash out into the world. And you want to take advantage of that if you love drinking tea, especially. Well, I don't know if I should say especially Chinese tea. I need to check out his shop, but I know Kirsten, like I, loves a wonderful pu'er. And these, like this is a show pu'er from the 1980s. Like that's real. Um, so I'm only drinking this on special occasions. And of course, it's a special occasion because here I am with you. Nice to see you. Nice to see you, Lily and Nadine. Thanks for saying hello in the comments there. Everyone else, please chime in. Love to know where you are beaming in from. I'm in the Bay Area of California, but special occasion also because, yeah, I'm like losing it a little bit and need to get grounded. And pu'er is such a wonderful gift for that intention. You'll typically see me drinking pu'ers when in astrology session, whether I'm with a client or teaching, because this tea, it comes from like ancient trees. And, trees are such amazing teachers in so many ways, right? Like the rooted and solid trunk, but the limbs that are willing to branch, especially in dance. Um, those pu'er, and all trees, like they root down into the earth and then they reach up into the heavens. So they're really wonderful teachers in that regard. I really feel like kind of like the Capricorn Aquarius and like the Saturnian nature there. And these old teas, like they're rare and unique and really beautiful. And again, Kirsten, thank you. Thanks to Jade Frog Tea. And I need it today because I'm freaking out a little bit. And that's actually what I wanted to speak about. And let me just, before I go there, offer that we're getting some hellos from Ireland and from North Carolina and also Ireland. That's amazing. Y'all should hang out. I mean, Ireland, you must be right down the street from one another. I don't think it works that way, but what if you are? From Virginia and Baja California and Mexico, the panhandle of Florida. All right, so we are global. We've got the corner of Pennsylvania here. All right, wonderful. And LA, cool. Yeah, as you come in, folks, please feel free to say where you are. Winter, I see you in San Francisco. Hello, Winter. And hello, Spring. And hello, the moon on Algol this morning. Maybe it was that. I had a little bit of a freak out. I'll be teaching tomorrow at Synchronicity University at Nadia Shah's place. So you can check that out. Search Synchronicity University, Gemini Brett. You can get there quickly. I'll try to find a link for you. Minnesota in the house. Turkey in the house. Amazing. Well, look at that. Somebody's in somebody else's hometown. How amazing that we can just do this worldwide web global thing these days, right? I'm going to just do a little search for synchronicity. University, Gemini Brett, translation of light. There we go. Void of course moon and the translation of light is a transmission that I will be offering at Synchronicity University tomorrow on May 9th, 2024. And I will put a link in the comments section here in case any of y'all want to come check that out, support the work. Really honored to have been invited by Nadia Shah. And so I was looking at this wonderful technique today of translation of light and looking at it in like some famous people charts, right? And one I had looked at before, but I wanted to be reminded of it because I thought it would be a chart example that I'd bring in tomorrow, is that of Frank Herbert, right, who is the author of Dune. And, Dune is alive and well right now because Denis Villeneuve's second edition of his Dune series of movies hit the silver screen not long ago. I've seen it twice, and I'm probably not done yet. It was a really amazing thing to watch. I'm actually hoping maybe to get an IMAX version at some point. But anyway, so Dune is in the airwaves around here once again. It was really an important book for me when I was young, and even the Dave Lynch movie did something for me in my day. And these movies that Denis is making are just off the chain. So I've been thinking about Frank Herbert. I've been doing some Dune reading again, listening to some like Dune podcasts, and it's around here right now. And so I was looking at Frank Herbert's, not only his natal chart, where looking at the translation of light, for example, why don't I show this? I'm going to open his chart and I'll put this on the screen. By the way, if you're watching at Instagram, you might want to head to the link in my bio and jump over to my YouTube space, just because when we're looking at charts, you're not going to see much on the little Instagram screen, where at YouTube it'll be full screen. So here is Frank Herbert's chart. No, here is Frank Herbert's chart. Okay. And the moon, when Frank Herbert was born on October 8th, 1920, at 7:30 a.m. in Tacoma, Washington, the moon had recently ingressed Virgo. And soon after she did, she had opposed Uranus here in Pisces. So if you know something about Dune, and I don't want to go like spoiler here, but there's something about a religious revolution of mystics going down, and a lot about manipulation. You can see pieces in the chart in that regard. And the moon is on her way to sextile Mercury. And Frank Herbert, of course, is a writer. He's an author. Like, I'm somewhat intrigued by that. Maybe that a sci-fi author having moon connecting Uranus and Mercury is an amazing thing to behold. I mean, he has a very strong trine between Mercury and Uranus in his natal chart, making him a Uranian as far as I'm concerned. I just taught a class last weekend or I should say led one last week at Constellations, because Constellations is the School of Astrology's membership group. And the second half of the class was really led by a bunch of us that were there together, where I asked questions just like, who's a Neptunian to you? Like, who brings you to Neptune? An answer from me in that regard, by the way, is Sigur Rós, a wonderful Icelandic band. And when I look at the chart for Jónsi, though I don't know Jónsi's birth time, was the singer and lead, I guess I should say, like, voice certainly and writer in the Sigur Rós world. Strong Venus Neptune, right? So confirmed. And the cool thing in this class, let me put Frank Herbert away a little bit, I'll just talk to you, is that oh, folks are saying the chart was not on the screen. Okay, good. Well, I'm glad I stopped and came here. Wonder why that happened. Okay, anyway, it's like, okay, who's a Plutonian? And people offered a couple names, and we opened their chart, and yes, indeed, strong connections to Pluto. Who's a Uranian? Strong connections to Uranus. It was pretty cool to see the theory like getting tested real time. And we'll be doing some of that together in our community discussions this week and probably this month. This particular class or theme was inspired by the recent Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, because again, I have a deep feeling that invisible planets speak to us and through us via their connection to the visible planets in real time and also in our charts, When I looked at the Mars-Saturn conjunction when I was in Hawaii, I've shown that the last recent weeks, I looked at Mars and Saturn. When I looked at the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, I only saw Jupiter, right? So I know Uranus is there because I trust the math, I trust the charts, but I can't see Uranus with my naked eye, right? That energy is coming to me like Jupiter is visibly aligning me there. There was a comet there too, which I did not see either. Anyway, so that is my general theory of how the invisible planets come to us, and that they activate us through their transits to our visible planets. But folks who were born with planets connected to the invisible planets are activators of that planetary signature. And so David Lynch, let me put the chart up this way, and I know this will work. Is an activator of Uranus. By the way, I'm going to put a link here in the comments for constellations. Many of you, I see your names, are already involved, and it's been so fun to explore astrology together. Constellations is the new membership group at the School of Earth Astrology, where we're teaming up to explore the astrological happenings together. So anyway, in Frank Herbert's chart, I would say very clearly Frank Herbert is a Uranian. The moon is a very strong opposition to Uranus, right, in the chart. Mercury has a really strong connection to Uranus. Mercury has a really strong connection to Pluto, right? Scorpio, Mercury, trine, Cancer, Pluto. Jupiter is connected with Pluto. Venus is connected with Pluto. He's a Plutonian. And better be a Neptunian as well, because Frank Herbert takes us to other worlds if you're willing to go there. And we see a really strong Venus square Neptune in the chart. Okay. Anyway, in regards to translation of light, from a traditional point of view, we're going to look at the moon's aspect to visible planets. And so this wouldn't be moon carrying Uranus, her recent opposition to Uranus, to Mercury, her upcoming aspect, but rather like moon hasn't done anything yet in the sign of Virgo as far as her connections with visible planets go. And so from some of the ancient points of view, she's still holding on to that conversation she had last from the sign of Leo, where she was just hours before Frank Herbert's birth. And that would have been moon trining Mars. So let me just go back before Frank Herbert's birth, and I'll show you moon trine Mars. Which was here on October 7th at 2:17 p.m., the Leo moon trining Mars. And from many modern points of view, this is when the moon goes void of course, because now she will not make another Ptolemaic aspect, meaning conjunction, sextile, square, trine, or opposition to another planet from the sign of Leo. Her next aspect will be, if you count invisible planets, the opposition to Uranus, or if you don't, the sextile to Mercury. So from an old school point of view, this is a moon that's actually in Leo, a very creative Leo, translating Sagittarius Mars through trine to a sextile with Scorpio Mercury, which is just about to perfect the time of Frank Herbert's birth. And if you know Dune, which certainly is not the only thing Frank Herbert wrote, there's a lot of sense to that. Because it's a book of religious war. And Mars and Sagittarius can do that pretty well, right? Virgo moon also, by the way. And then carrying that to Scorpio Mercury, there's a statement of power and the voice of power and languaging of power and control dynamics that are very much alive in that world. Okay, so anyway, what I was doing this morning is I was like, well, it'd be a cool thing to present in this class tomorrow at Synchronicity University. It would be cool to bring in also progressed translations of light. And so I was just researching, well, at 4 in the morning, because I don't sleep. When was it that the first Dune novel came out? And the answer is 1965. But the Dune world was first introduced through a series of articles in a magazine in 1963 and 1964. It was called Dune World. So it's December of 1963. And so I'm going to look at Frank Herbert's progressions in December 1963, and we're going to see in the chart, but let's see what the moon was up to. All right, so let's do a secondary progress chart. I'll just do like 1212 because it's the best number ever. 1963 at 12:12 p.m. And here's the progress chart at the time. All right, now let me just flip this around and we'll look only at that chart. Okay. And we see a Pisces moon in a pretty strong opposition to Saturn. Okay. But of course, also she's kind of between Saturn and Jupiter here. However, she's actually between Saturn and Mercury. Because before this time, the moon would have trined that Scorpio Mercury, now retrograde. Yeah. And then, and so first she opposes Jupiter, then she trines Mercury, then she opposes Saturn, and then she sextiles Mars. It's like a pretty cool shape. It's called a trapezoid shape. That's very much alive at this time of Frank Herbert's introducing Dune to the world via this first magazine article that I know was sometime this month, December of 1963. And secondary progressions move so slowly. The moon moves about 1 degree per month. So I'm confident of the moon in this degree. And so what would it be for a Pisces moon to be carrying Scorpio Mercury to Virgo Saturn? I mean, there really is something about the language of magic and power and going back. This is Mercury being reborn here at this particular phase of Mercury's dance with the sun and bringing that to like a new structure of Virgo, which is totally alive in the Dune books. Okay. You're going to have to know the Dune books and you hear that and you're like, damn. So anyway, progressed translation of light must work because it worked in one example. Okay. Well, this is going to bring me to where I went next, which is what? When you see a thing happening astrologically and you're like, that's a thing, let me ask you, friends, what do you do? Whose chart do you go to next? Like if you see by looking at like, celebrity chart and testing an astrology technique and you're like, wow, that technique's a thing, then what chart do you go to next? And I'm going to wait for your answers. Anyone? And by the way, I'm not asking what the right thing to do is. I'm just asking you personally, whose chart do you test first? And my own, of course, and your own, exclamation point, right? And so I went and did that. Okay, kind of wishing I hadn't. And then I went and did my partner Anna's progressed translation of light. Kind of wishing I hadn't. And then just before we came on here, I went and checked this out in Koa's chart, who, if you don't know, my partner is Anna. We're having a baby next month. And her son, Koa, is 8, going on 9, going on 50,000 lifetimes. An amazing soul. I've been in his world since he was 3. We're close, right? And he's about to become a big brother. We have a baby girl coming next month. So here's where I get to the question that I posed in the subject matter of this chart, which is what to do when the astrology is freaking me out. And, sometimes astrology just freaks us out in this wonderful way of, oh my God, I can't believe that's happening. Like this thing actually works. I actually have on my altar here an image of crow. And you know what? I want to actually explain why and hear myself saying this maybe as a reminder right now too. So this goes back to a story from the tradition about Corvus, the crow, who was said initially to have been silver. I'm laughing because I should share this also. I am interrupting my interruption of myself to bring you this message that I interrupt myself, and I will even interrupt my interruption of myself. Look, one of my Gemini mantras is these many branches I'm called to climb all emanate from the same trunk. More tea. Thank you. Jade Frog Tea. Check them out. So I'm in this VR collective of astrologers who maybe even more ironically than me includes Cameron Allen, who I hope you know Cameron's work. Cameron is amazing. And one of the great gifts that Cameron is bringing to astrology and expanding in astrology's many treasures is astro embodiment, and really getting to know the body through astrology and astrology through the body, and connecting those correspondences, advancing them, and really working in practices to help us connect the body depending on what's happening in the heavens now, right? So for example, the moon is in Taurus, about to move to Gemini. Taurus lives in this place, in Gemini here, right? And I should also, mention Alyssa Luna, who was here at Storytelling Hour on Wednesday last week, who led a Taurus astro embodiment practice for constellations last weekend. And it was beautiful, though I have to admit, it might have been Taurus, but it was certainly not yoga, that instead of participating with the practice physically, I was listening to it as I was cooking breakfast for my beloved. But I feel like cooking a tasty breakfast for my pregnant beloved was at least a Taurus embodiment practice, even though it was not yoga. And I do intend to tune into this beautiful transmission that Alyssa offered to the School of Astrologies, to constellations this weekend for Taurus. And she was speaking there too about, the throat and kind of opening the throat and relaxing into it and these wonderful things, right? So anyway, Cameron Allen is part of this Astro Hut collective that I am as well, which is helping us teach and share and experience astrology through virtual reality. And so my intent is to use this tool to help people learn more about the astronomy of astrology, right? That's why I've been invited to participate with this collective, which also includes Patrick Watson, John Eon, who's putting it together, Cameron Crisp. Oh, that's not Cameron's last name. That's a different Cameron in my life. Oh, you know what? I can't name everybody. Just show up. If you have some hours on Mother's Day, which is the chart that these astrologers elected, because it's when the planets are good, then come on by. Unfortunately, many of us have plans on Mother's Day, but I'll be sneaking away to do my share. Some of it I'm pre-recording. And I'm just going to see if I can find a link to offer for Astro Hut. So I'm searching around for that right now. Okay, here we go. The Astro Hut on Instagram would be a place where you can find it. Cameron Cassidy, by by the way, is the name I was reaching for. Camille is another astrologer who is involved. All right, so let me put that link here in the Instagram world and here in the other worlds too, if you want to check it out. So there's a collective of we astrologers coming together to put on VR headset realm and to bring you into the Astro Hut, which is this like meeting space where our like VR avatars can walk around and engage with each other. It's pretty cool. You know, I'm hesitant because I'm really trying to stay earthling in this rapidly advancing dawning of the Aquarian age and Aquarius, Pluto, and all the things, right? It's just like too much at once. And ironically, like I really want to help astrologers stay earthed and grounded by helping them understand that the chart is more than a map of the soul, which is a beautiful thing. It's a map of the sky in any given moment of time from a place, right? Anyway, I became a sky guy when I was in Seattle, which is a ironic thing in and of itself, right? Because the cloud, and I don't mean the clouds, the cloud will come in and eat the entire sky and you don't see anything. But it's where I really started becoming a pretty adept user of stellarium astronomy software, which many of you have seen me use frequently and teach astronomy classes using that wonderful software and whatnot, right? Which is cool. I mean, in case you're not familiar with stellarium, let me just put stellarium on the screen right now. Let's go to Frank Herbert's birth in Tacoma, Washington. You know what? Actually, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to look right now because that will help me get back to the right now. And I'm just going to set the screen share up in a different way so that you can see it. Okay. So this is a map of the sky. Right now at 11:38 a.m. where I am, Richmond, California. And maybe that's a little bit easier to experience if I was to share this instead. This is Stellarium astronomy software, right? Now, for a more human experience, let me kind of zoom in, right? And there's probably not cartoons and whatnot in the sky or any of these lines and such, but or directions written on the ground, you know. But as I'm out like looking around, what I would notice outside right now is the sun. Well, if I dim the lights, as stellarium lets me do, then I might see this moon. Can't see her right now, of course, because the sun is up and she's so close to the sun that she's very much blinded by the beams of the sun. Now, the moon is approaching the Pleiades, and like this star, Maya, for example. But many will be talking about how moon is currently lying through her perpendicular projections to a star a little bit further away. This one here, who is called Algol. Okay. Anyway, so I've used stellarium to share, teach. I use stellarium a lot in my consultations because I am as interested in constellational and star-based happenings as I am in chart-based signs and houses and the like. And I really like to integrate the two, right? Well, the VR, which has a stellarium application, it's the next level. So the stellarium application in the VR, by the way, you can't do nearly as much as I can in that version that we were just looking at on the screen. But the difference is I put the goggles on and I'm now inside the heavenly sphere. And instead of having to push buttons to move left or right, which by the way, I also can, I can just do this and look around and look up and down, right? I mean, it is amazing. And it doesn't offer this yet, but eventually it will offer the opportunity for you and me. I don't know that stellarium will, but we're working on these kinds of things at Astro Hut to go in side by side, even though you're in Ireland and I'm here in California, and stand next to each other in this planetarium space. So I look to my left and I see you there. You look to your right, you see me there. We look up and we see Vega, right? Now, one of us is going to have to be able to run the controls, and maybe we can switch that back and forth. But if I wanted to take you, for example, out to Mars, there's a button for that. And then we see what stars Earth is aligned to when we're looking from Mars. Do you see what I'm saying? Like there are endless amazing possibilities. And even at like the very kind of basic, which is the most advanced possibility of it, it's to really be able to get into this moment also from this astronomical point of view, to go back to your birth chart moment, right? Like eventually I'll probably do readings in this way for people who have goggles and take them into this space of their birth chart, right? Where maybe you're born at daytime and we're just seeing the sun. Well, I can dim the lights. And then I can show you that sun Neptune square in your chart, and then we can like look at it. You know, there's that Mercury-Pluto conjunction in the 5th. And we're going to have to look down and through the ground to see that one, but we can, right? And so, well, on one level, it's kind of ironic because I'm the School of Earth Astrology, right? Or I'm a member of the School of Earth Astrology that I've started, right? I really want to help people stay earthed and grounded and open up that side of astrology. So it seems weird to do that in VR goggles, but you can understand the application. Then Cameron Allen, who's really assisting in our embodiment, it's strange to do that there, but I will share this. I shared this with Cameron the other day when we were in a meeting for this thing, actually. I've been like boxing in VR. This is kind of fun. Stuff's flying at you and you punch it, and it, like I'm sweating, like it's been a good workout, right? But anyways, if I'm wise, I do the warm-ups and the cool downs before I go into these like boxing trainings, so I don't hurt my aging frame. And I was in this experience where the trainer, who's this, virtual reality woman, is encouraging me to kind of hold my arms up in cactus style, right? And she's telling me to have my elbows at the same height as my shoulders. And I went and looked over to see if that was happening. But I don't have an arm in this particular application in this virtual reality space. I think it's called Fit VR. I can't remember. But you have gloves on that have the logo of the fitness app. But then you don't have anything else. So I can look to my right and left at some places, and I see other people who are doing this boxing training with me. Well, they're doing their boxing training next to me, right? Just like we were in like a Taibo class or something like that. Yeah. But so I can't see me. I can't see my arms. There's other places where I can, like I can see reflections of my avatar, who as of this morning is in much better shape. But anyway, I can't see my arm, so I could see my hand up here. But it was like a cool thing, and why I'm sharing this is I wasn't allowed to look to see if my elbow was at the same height as my shoulder. And because I couldn't see that, I just had to feel it. And in that sense, I had to experience this with my body mind, right, more than my like brain mind coming through the senses of my eyes. Not that my eyes aren't body too, but you feel what I'm coming from, right? And it was this amazing kind of experience. It was like, wow, there actually are embodiment possibilities in the VR realm that can open up, especially for some folks like me that might not be all that embodied in the first place. So of course, all sorts of dangers of living in VR and not living in the real world. Like it's, imagine that my dog Isabel, probably not too happy when I'm like playing in some reality and she's right here. And it's the weirdest thing. I don't know if y'all have experienced it, but it's pretty cool. But to put on these goggles and like, it's kind of like the faker the world is that you go into, the more my consciousness is willing to accept it as my new reality. I remember my friend Eric Nez, who I'd love to get on here sometimes, a wonderful artist, Eric. You know, it was the time I met Kirsten of Jade Frog Tea, which reminds me, more tea. And Eric, who is this brilliant painter, would often paint at these wonderful festivals like this one, which was the Imagine Festival on Orcas Island. And so, you know, many of us love to see the live painters there who over the course of like a 3-day festival weekend will create a masterpiece. Like many great painters, Meloria Weaver, for example. Oh, I mean, I could go on and on. Anyway, at this particular festival, Eric didn't show up with a canvas. He came with a screen in this whole virtual reality situation. And it was like, what? And we're watching him create paintings. Eric paints with an airbrush. It's astonishing. Watching him create this virtual reality world was like boring and felt very not artistic. But on the last day, when he said, "Come on over here, Brett," and put the goggles on my head, and then I was inside the world he created, it was absolutely amazing. And it's funny, by the way, that this collective is called Astro Hut, because what Eric made was basically a hut with this beautiful kind of like, it's like a paper beehive that you go into. And there was this cup of tea on an altar. And so you could walk in and sit at this virtual altar with a virtual cup of tea. And by the way, I met Eric through tea, and I met tea through Eric. So here's to you, Mr. Nez. Thank you. Yum. And thank you, Kirsten. And then when you look up in this hut, there was a skylight, right? It was just cut out, and you could see the stars. And then you could stand up, and now you were outside of the hut, like in this kind of planetarium that Eric made. And it wasn't like, you know, the stars as they look from Earth, right? And I just remember coming out of that and being like, dude, Eric, you are like a good God. Like, you created this amazing world. And it was so cool and different, but also kind of real. Okay, so weird tangent to be on. And you know why I'm here? Not only to say, check out Astro Hut. And Discerning Light, I see you asking, is there a website or is there only Instagram? There's not a website. There's Instagram, and then there's Twitter, which is a place that I don't spend much time at. And one of the reasons is because there's so much like debate in the Twitter space, right? And actually, one of the things that's going to happen on Sunday at this launch of the Astro Hut is there is going to be a debate, like a classical astrology debate, you know, but like in a virtual stage space. So, and by the way, you don't have to have glasses or the goggles, the headset, I guess it's called, to come in and play. Like, it's going to be beamed to flat screens around the world. So Instagram would be a place to go, Twitter another one, Astro Hut. And besides that, I don't know. I'll try to like rebroadcast it maybe to MySpace. I don't know. Actually, I'm going to cook my beloved, who's about to become the mother of my daughter, brunch. Right. I'm going to like be in the space, then go away and do that. And then I'm teaching my thing at 4:30 p.m. Pacific time to 5:30 this Sunday. And then there's going to be a panel for half an hour after that. And then I'll be cooking dinner. So anyway, so that just Discerning Light, all I know of is there is Instagram and there's Twitter right now, and I don't know. Oh, so Diane just wrote Astro Hut is on Facebook as well. I definitely value us getting away from all of these commercial spaces and going into other places like the School of Astrology. Okay. So anyway, the reason why I went on that tangent is last night I was working on how am I going to transmit this virtual space in such a way that people can see it and I can kind of use it and talk about it. Because we're not yet in a place where you can put a headset on and we can be in the planetarium together. We are at the place where we can put headsets on and be in the Astro Hut together. which is this kind of virtual world. So I'm going to start my presentation with John there, where we will be working on a model of the lunar nodes, which he's already created based on some comments, and then I'm going to go in there and help him fix it by like showing him like astronomically what's off by it with it and stuff, and we'll like learn a lot about astronomy just in doing that. And the possibilities of this thing are endless, and we're just at the very kind of young stages of it, right? Okay. Anyway, so the reason why I'm here is when I said Corvus, I'm remembering that I was on one of my tests yesterday, and I was looking at a star, and it's Algorab, the crow's wing, which is said to be one of the 15 Bohemian stars of Hermes. And it's a star to which Mercury was strongly aligned when I was born. I was born Gemini rising with a Libra Mercury conjoined Pluto. And they're there in the kind of waist of the priestess and wing of the crow space of the heavens. So crow, right, and bringing me back to this thing that's on my altar and why crow is here and why on the back, well, let me show it to you. And thanks to Rachel for this gift. Some of you will know what this material is. Please don't write a comment about it. And she chose crow because I choose crow. And she asked me what would I like to have written on the back of it. And I wrote this Coronis. And you can see the O's are circumpunx, right? Symbols of the sun. And this is here to remind me to not get too attached to the story. So this tale goes like this. When Crow was burned, Crow was once silver. Apollo, who sadly was cursed by one of Cupid's arrows to love desperately, but by a second arrow, which would ensure that he was never loved in return, has too many just tragic love or wishes for love stories. And so in this tale, Apollo had been spending some time with a mortal woman here on Earth. And he knew, this was Coronis, he knew that she was seeing another dude. And Apollo just knows truth, right? That's part of the sun's gig. So it's not like he needed to send an agent out to confirm this story, but he did. And he asked Corvus, or told Corvus to go and to bring back the news. And when Corvus brought back this bad news that, yes, indeed, she was messing around with this other dude, Apollo just went nuclear, solar flare, and burned the crow. And this is why crows are black, which, by the way, helps them travel at night in a way that we don't see their flight. Yes, I love crows. But the reason why this is here, so Apollo didn't like go solar flare because the crow told him this news. He already knew it. He went solar flare because the crow had some excitement and took some pleasure in delivering the message. And so the reason why I bring that in now is, and it's helpful for me to hear, I believe, is that like as an astrologer, sometimes somebody shares just this tragic story with me. And of course, the human being in me is like, oh my gosh, are you okay? But the astrologer in me, because I see it in their chart, literal in their chart, right? It's like the astrologer in me is like, oh my God, this thing works. You know what I mean? There's like this excitement that astrology works. It's like, oh, dude, hold on. Be a human first, right? So many of you know that when my magic ring goes on, the mantra is heart before chart, right? And the crow helps me just like remembers what you're like, dude, like start with the heart. Like, yes, astrology is exciting, but don't get so lost in your excitement of it that you're not there with the person. And it's a struggle for me. It can be really hard for me, honestly, to be in that like good, safe space. All right. It can be a struggle for me to fly our Brettrograde back to this statement that you might see as the title of this video, which is what to do when the astrology is freaking me out. I'm going to take that a little bit further in what I wrote in the description of this thing, which is sometimes astrological sight feels more like a curse than a blessing. What's the best way to play when the astrology gets scary? Care to help me, Brettrograde? Care to help me shift that perspective? So earlier, I played this game with Frank Herbert's secondary progressed translation of light at the time when Dune first found its way to public eyes in December of 1963, and saw in this Pisces moon carrying retrograde Scorpio Mercury through trine to an opposition with Virgo Saturn. I was like, oh, that's real. I wonder what my current translation of light is. And so I cast my secondary progress chart, and it's so amazing to me because, and maybe it's like this for you too, I spend so much more time with other people's charts than I do with my own. And I'm not one of these people like Mark Jones, he knows my chart. I showed it to him once, and every time I see him, it's not like he's studying my chart a ton at all. He just knows my chart, and so when we run into each other, he beautifully reached out to me recently, older brother style. I was like, dude, I heard you guys are having a baby. That's awesome. You're going to love it. You're going to be a good dad. Like, it was so nice for Mark to reach out. And then, Mark will source things in my chart because he saw it once and he knows it like that. He works that way. For me, I don't at all. And whether this is just a justification of my inability to remember or not, and I don't believe it is, I like to kind of purge the files after I sit with a client. I feel like that's part of my client confidentiality, like unspoken and sometimes spoken agreement. I've actually had Astro Gold create this button that's one of the many buttons that I'm told they call a Brett button, where I can go, you know what? I forgot where it is in this thing. Oh, right here, clear displayed data. Okay, so like right now, if I go recently used charts, you're going to see these Frank Herbert charts we were working on. Okay, so I can just do that. And now we're there in Frank Herbert's chart. But if I go up here and say clear displayed data, or use the keyboard shortcut, which is not that, it's this, clear displayed data, and it tells me all the things that are going to go in. I hit clear. And now it just casts a transit chart for where I'm set for my home location. And there's no more recently used charts. This way, I won't accidentally share my client's information when I'm doing a teaching online, if I'm in a consultation with the next client or whatever. And it's like that in my mind too. At the beginning of a session, I open up. I have a whole thing I do before I come on with somebody. I have a thing that I'm doing while I'm asking somebody to share their intention with me. It used to be a bracelet. Now it's this Aldebaran ring. Thank you. And heart before chart. May the wisdom of this beautiful being speak through me today, right? Like there's like mantras so I can come into my space. And then when I'm done, so I can be a human again. And I, boom, right? Clear data, right? It's gone. Totally gone. When I meet with, I have many clients or students I'm meeting with monthly, I start to know their chart. But sometimes I will surprise them in my lack of knowing of their chart, which I actually feel like is good client confidentiality. All right. Why that? Right. Just to say that even though I am in like other people's chart, my own, it's not like I know their charts either. I know my chart to the degree in the arc minutes. In a way I never thought I would have been able to memorize before. And it's not a memorization, it's a learning. Do you know what I'm saying? There's a very significant difference. And I know what stars the planets were aligned to when I was born. When I look out at Porama and the crow's wing, I'm like, that's where my Mercury was. That's where Pluto was up there. This is this line they draw, right? So I could use a little bit of this Corvus reminder now and this Coronis reminder. We might get burned if we get too attached to the story. So sometimes that's helpful in astrology, because when I looked at my secondary progress situation now, so I'd be like, what are my translations? And maybe I'll just put my chart on the screen for you real quick. I was born October 24th, 1975. 7:39 p.m. in Boston, Massachusetts, with Gemini on the rise. Some ephemerides forced me to write 7:39:02 to get 9:36 Gemini rising, which I know to be right. Anyway, when I was born, here's the moon in Gemini. Some would say she's void of course. Some say maybe not, because she's still yet to sextile Chiron. Well, I don't count Chiron personally in translation of light considerations. I also don't see sign cusps as the place where the moon will drop the light. According to the tradition, she can move 13 degrees or even up to 30 to translate the light from her previous conversation to that of her next. And when I go that way, the moon has, before my birth, sextiled Jupiter, and she's carrying that essence or that part of that conversation to her coming trine with the sun, which does happen before the moon conjoins Mars. After she trines the sun, then she'll bring that to Mars, and then she'll bring that to Mercury, and on we go. Anyway, so I was looking at my secondary progressions for now, and it was like, okay, what's my progressive moon doing? Okay, yeah, she's at 1036 Aries, and oh, Pluto's at 1123. And Neptune, but Pluto. And then I did this for Anna. Moon square Pluto. Actually, moon square Mars Pluto. Then I did this for Koa. Moon conjunct Pluto. So I have moon, secondary progressed moon, opposing progressed Pluto. Anna has progressed moon squaring progressed Pluto, and Koa has progressed moon conjunct progressed Pluto. And it's hard for me to see that or to say that without freaking out. Do you feel why that would be? And we have to remind ourselves that Pluto doesn't equal bad. Pluto doesn't equal difficult initiation. But Pluto often shows up that way. We have to remind ourselves, like I'm also in a Pluto transit. I'm having Pluto currently in square with my Scorpio sun by transit. To remind ourselves that secondary progressions aren't going to determine your life. Transits aren't going to determine what happens in your life. And your interpretation of them can cause significant issues. Pluto wants transformation. Is becoming a dad enough for you? Right? For Koa, is becoming a brother and not being the only child, right? He's like, for the first time the other day, bridged this. Well, now that there's going to be a baby, are you going to be here to read books to me at night, Mom? Right? Is that not transformation enough? Anna's becoming a mom again. Things are transforming at her work as a result. Like, is that not enough? And the answer is yes, of course it is, right? But look back at some of the Pluto timings in your life. Right, so Linda writes here, having a baby is quite the atomic change, right? Thank you for that, Linda. Discerning, I have Pluto. Well, I missed it, but there, this one's nice. Thank you, Melissa. I think it is a potent reminder that those we choose to walk with, we truly have opportunities to learn and grow with each other. Yeah, totally. No, Pluto does not. It's a big change. Being in my Pluto square Pluto and my sun start driving this year. I get it. Well, because your son's driving, and I imagine your fear has increased, right, around your son's safety. Pluto equals deep connection, Dre reminds us to know this. In discerning light, I have Pluto conjunct Jupiter in my first house natally. I get Pluto. Yeah, I have my steersman conjunct Pluto. Like, I get Pluto. My Mercury is conjunct Pluto. Like, I talk Pluto, right? This is part of what I do for my job. And try to do that in a balance. There's the Libra part way. And I try to offer myself also that, wait a second, like, we don't have to go, even though this comment was about something very different, let's be there, maybe Discord or someplace like that, right? And I want to, like, just synchronistically, though, discerning light said that about something totally different. You'll remember if you've been here in this statement too. We have to learn to balance uses of technologies. The internet itself has opened so many worlds and cultures. Yeah, and it's also being used to spy on us and control us, right? Learning to balance use of technologies, and astrology is a technology. Now, first of all, astrology is the poetic breath of nature. It is correspondences, the results of the measurable heavenly happenings. But astrology is also a different word used to describe the tool that we utilize to study these correspondences. And for some of us, to predict what will result based upon what we find through the study. And for some of us, doing our best to remember that we are not going to be able to predict a thing. Now, I can look back at previous Pluto transits in my life and see great challenge. And no doubt that was true during my Pluto square Pluto, which is often billed as kind of the strongest Pluto transit of lifetime. Some suggest Pluto Sun transits. I'm in one now. Maybe Pluto Moon. Pluto ascendant, can be even stronger. But I met astrology during my Pluto square Pluto. I met astrology and developed as an astrologer and started working as an astrologer during my Pluto square Mercury. So it's not like I don't have clear evidence looking back to know that Pluto can be so beautiful, but I have also held space for many people who are going through hell on earth during Pluto transits. So this is another reason why I say astrology is a blessing, but also can be a curse. And if we can't get out of being hung up on the fear of what might happen, we shouldn't look at astrology at all. So these are things I know, and these are things I can remind myself about. But it's sometimes very difficult. Maybe sometimes it's most difficult to take my own advice, right? And so to actually have a bunch of people, powerful people around like yourself, who are willing to hear these things and share these things. And by the way, in constellations, I'll be there for the Friday community discussion group, Friday morning group. I plan to bring this in and to talk about this because, we're currently in the study of like invisible planets talking to us and through us via their connection to visible planets. And I'm a Plutonian. I mean, I'm also a Uranian and Neptunian, and we're going to be doing some of that stuff. But I have Mercury who rules my ascendant on Pluto. I don't love that word rule, but Pluto might. So does this actually mean I'm more prone to be in fear and transmit fear? Well, there's been plenty of that in my life for sure. And trying to be more Libra balanced, and that is part of the game. And that has to start here. Yeah. And so I think astrology gets way too off course in just the tendencies towards predicting fear. I mean, look at this recent example of this, this woman, this homicidal woman during the eclipse recently, right? You, I'm sure, knew about that, right? But I think astrology, we also need to be careful going the other way. Oh, it's all good, like it's all easy. Life doesn't work that way, you know? So Diane says, perhaps it has something to do with being fearless. And so let me just end by saying, I can learn to have less fear without pretending that this world is fearless. It's a world where fear does not exist. That I know not to be true, because I don't go with that fear equals false emotions appearing real acronym thing that many do. I honor my fears. I honor the fears of my clients, and then try to help them and me work through this, you know? And so just astrology's given me more stuff that I have to work through, or more reminder that I have stuff to work through, and that I got about a month to do so. And so let's see how I do. Again, for me, most importantly, Pluto is transformation, and my life is about to transform in huge ways by having a perfectly healthy, amazing, loving child. Thanks for spending some time with me here, friends. Good to see you. See you next Wednesday, or much sooner if you're in constellations. Let me put that link on the screen once again. Come check out what Constellations is about. Come hang out. So we're still offering the maiden voyage price of literally only $16 a month. You can leave anytime. So come check us out for a month. There'll be 11 hours of my teachings waiting for you, already recorded. Aries and Taurus Astro embodiment practices recorded by Alyssa Luna, and many, 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 many more things coming soon, in regular community discussion groups. So for those of you who are in constellations or who are joining constellations, come hang out Friday, 8 a.m. Pacific time. Love to see you there. And then let me add this link one more time, which is Synchronicity University for tomorrow, where I will be teaching about void of course and translation of light. And I'm sure I will bring this subject up once again, because it's alive for me right now. And then the last thing I'll share, and I'll share the Instagram link for the Astro Hut, where this Sunday we'll be having this launch party. Come hang out. All right. Wonderful to spend some time. Thank you so much for hearing my words and offering some heart and some love and some feedback. And I hope, hopefully this transmission has offered the same for you. See you in space, y'all.